Greetings, fellow moviegoers, and welcome to Movie Central, the place to talk about movies, TV shows based on movies, toys based on movies, games based on movies, and rides based on movies. I'm your host, Mr. CCS, and this is my pet gorilla, George. Sherlock Holmes. With the iconic stories first published in 1887 by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, Sherlock Holmes quickly became one of the most iconic staples in pop culture, with several movie adaptations, a BBC series, and even an adaptation by Alvin and the Chipmunks, which is actually pretty good. However, how would Disney do an adaptation? Well, it wouldn't be directly adapting the story like several others, but it would instead be like Robin Hood and have all the characters be animals, but it would take a whole different step and create whole new characters based around Basil of Baker Street. It was released around a time when Disney was financially struggling, so this movie was doomed to fail. But that doesn't matter right now because I have a job to do. So let's get to reviewing. This is The Great Mouse Detective. Basil, voiced by Barry Ingham, embarks on the greatest case of his career when London's master toymaker, voiced by Alan Young, is kidnapped. He ends up pitting his wits against his old adversary, Professor Ratigan, voiced by Vincent Price, who wants to become supreme ruler of old mousedom. Yeah, that's short, but that's not really a good thing, as the pacing felt either rushed or too slow. But besides the weak story, the other aspects have to be good, don't they? Well, as you can tell by the tone of my voice, not really. The characters are kind of lame. Basil is such a boring protagonist, and he's also terrible. He acts nothing like Sherlock Holmes, and he acts like a straight-up jerk and has no progression whatsoever. Dawson was also very boring and so uninteresting. With that said, the relationship between Dawson and Basil reminds me of Watson and Holmes. There are only three characters I loved in this film. Olivia, who is one of the most accurate representation of little girls in an animated movie, her father, who I thought was written well, and Professor Ratigan, who was voiced by Vincent Price. But other than that, the characters are so bland and boring. With those problems, though, there are some good things about the movie. For one, the animation is really good. Though it's got one issue. It reminds me too much of Don Bluth's An American Tale, which came out 4 months later. But that's the only complaint with the animation. As for the score, Henry Mancini, the same guy who created the same score for the Pink Panther, well, not exactly the same score, does a great job setting up the world, and the original songs they created for the movie are pretty good. But with all that said, this movie is still bad. Sorry for the short review, but I really have nothing else to say. It's half good, half bad, which is why it gets a 5 out of 10. No need for elementary here. Well, that's it for this review. Feel free to leave your comments on the movie below, and tune in next week when I review The Little Mermaid. Sorry again for the short review. With that said, my name is Mr. CCS, this is Movie Central, and that, my friends, is a wrap. See you next week.